Okay, so this is the top of my girl's head, and then I've got her ponytail back over here. I've drawn myself a line that is the outside edge. I basically want to cut away so that the whole thing is about 1/4 of an inch or so. I can use a combination of tools, but the nicest one to start with, if you've got a big open space, is a big loop tool. So this is just a trimming loop tool from the wheel, and I'm just going to kind of cut slices out of here. Now I want to keep my hand kind of back here on the other side of the of the head, because I don't want to accidentally go too far. And having my hand there helps me, I have a sense of where my hand is, so it helps me know if I'm getting too close. I'm also working my way up to that line. So I'm cutting away these big sections. I know they need to come out. But I'm going to be a little bit more careful as I get closer to the kind of back section where I have a less of an idea how much thickness I have by looking at it. So I'm cutting out sections, cutting out sections. Now, the thing that people get worried about is they worry that when they're doing it, people are sometimes afraid on this project. And the thing they are afraid about is cutting through. Now, it's annoying when you cut through, and we'll try to have you not cut through. But cutting through at least a little bit, occasionally, is not that big of a deal. It's clay, so you can always add more clay on. Now your surface is leather hard. You might need to score and slip when you add more clay on, but that's okay. You can do that. That's allowed. In fact, if you look in at mine, looks like I have barely any space between where the armature was and where my head is. I'm actually going to want to reinforce that, and it explained something to me. When I was taking this off, I noticed a very thin crack happening on the top of my head. And I thought, well, that's weird. I don't remember noticing that yesterday when I left it to dry. Well, it wasn't there. The outside has dried a little bit, and it's shrunk a little bit. And the outside's leather hard. That's why I'm able to work with it and not squish it. When the outside dried on this piece, it shrank just a bit. And because it was so close to that armature, my piece ended up cracking just a bit at the top. Now, obviously, I don't want that crack there, so I'm going to clean it up on the outside, but I'm also going to reinforce it on the inside. So I'm going to take some wet clay, and I'm going to score and slip. I didn't have any slip right over here, but I'll add some wet clay into there. I'll score and slip it in place. I can actually make kind of a little coil there, and I'll press it into place like that. I'll wait until I have some slip handy. The clay, why this method works this way is that combination of wet and leather hard. The outside of my piece is leather hard, which is keeping me from breaking this as I bend it, keeping me from squishing it. But the inside is a little bit wetter. It's been protected from drying. It's been covered up with a head, right? It's been covered up with the rest of the sculpture. So as I go to clean this out, I'm basically taking away that softer clay. Now I'm using my fingers to pinch and feel where my thickness is, and I can actually mark it for myself. I've got a little bit extra thickness there. This is actually, I don't want to thin anymore right there. I'm in pretty good shape there, maybe a little thick right there. And I'm just feeling, I'm just feeling where my thickness is. You guys have worked with pinch pots before, and so you have some sense of how thick the clay how thick the clay is how it feels when it's whatever thickness. If you're not so sure, you can practice on a little piece. Get yourself a small, pinch pot, or even a solid, just cut apart a chunk of clay and try it. Cut through and wire it through to see how thick you've gotten it. I'm not going to do that on this one because I'd like to keep it and keep working with it. But I've got it pretty even throughout. I've got a little bit of repair to do on the very top there. This one is then going to go back on here and get put together. I'm going to wait until the armature is out of there. I've got this up on foam, and the foam is going to help me keep it the right shape. I can just leave it here sitting on the foam, not for a long, long time, but for the time that I'm working, for an hour or half an hour or so. Now, the ponytail is actually a bit wetter, and that's because I kept it covered. I was worried about it drying too much, and so the trade-off was I had it dry maybe not quite enough. But I can still work with it here as long as I'm kind of gentle and as long as I'm aware that I may have to reshape some of the ponytail. I'm going to start with this large loop tool, but because this is such a small piece relative to the, it's so narrow, I'm actually going to switch over to the little loop tool a little bit more quickly. I've got my lines drawn in that side. I should probably also draw a line in, over here. It's clay, so if you screw up, just erase it. Okay, just draw over it. Just draw over it multiple times. There we go. And now I can have kind of a guide for that. Now, if you've got a piece, like my ponytail here, that changes in depth throughout, or once we get into parts like the nose and the cheeks and things like that, you're going to want to go more slowly. And so that's a good time to use this smaller loop tool to do some of your carving. Take your time. I would pull up a chair and sit, because you're going to be here a while, and just take your time, piece by piece. You can always stop. Oh man, I think I'm getting too thin, and check and see if you are actually getting too thin. Add some clay in there, score and slip, press it in, or if it's soft like this, you can just press it in. I've got a hole from where I had a stick that was holding this up, and that's going to need to get patched as well. So if it's soft enough, I can just press some clay in, otherwise I'm going to need to score and slip it in place. Once I've got both of these, or all the various parts carved, cut out and hollowed out, I'm going to line up my key on all of the different sides, and I'm going to score and slip and put these guys back together. But I'll show you that after I'm a little bit farther along. Thanks.